The call came during a quarterly review, and the world simply ceased to exist. The drive to St. Anne's Hospital was a white-knuckled blur against the backdrop of Seattle's perpetual gray drizzle. I was about to push through the door to his room, my hands trembling around a bouquet of garish, optimistic sunflowers, his favorite, when his voice stopped me. It was Leo's voice, but the words were a stranger's. He was talking to Caleb, his cousin, his tone laced with a kind of mocking disbelief. He questioned the very idea of having a boyfriend, declaring himself straight as an arrow and speculating loudly about what kind of guy must have trapped him. He painted a lurid picture of a messy, predatory world he wanted no part of. He wanted out. Out. The words weren't just words. They were physical blows, knocking the air from my lungs. I took a steadying breath, the sterile, antiseptic scent of the hospital filling my senses, and pushed the door open. The change was instantaneous. Leo's eyes, which had been narrowed in disgust, widened. The confident derision vanished, replaced by a flustered, almost boyish charm. He gestured towards me, a blush creeping up his neck. He asked Caleb in a loud whisper who I was, remarking that he definitely would have remembered a face like mine. He then turned his full attention to me, his gaze direct and appraising. He thought it was a shame his head was scrambled, because he couldn't recall my name, my major, or most importantly, if I was single. Caleb just sighed, but Miles, our other friend who had been sitting quietly, looked at me with wide, panicked eyes. I gave him a nearly imperceptible shake of my head and walked towards the bed. Ignoring Leo for a moment, I reached out and took Miles's hand, lacing our fingers together. I told Leo it was a pity, but he was just a little too late. We just made things official. Leo and Caleb stared at our joined hands as if they were a venomous snake. To sell it, I pulled 2 tickets from my jacket pocket and handed them to Miles. They were for Crimson Bloom, a band he'd been obsessed with for months. I told him I'd managed to snag front row seats for his birthday. Miles, bless him, is a born actor. His jaw dropped. He leaped up, screaming that I was the absolute best, and planted a loud, smacking kiss on my cheek. I laughed, wiping my cheek, and my eyes met Leo's over Miles's shoulder. His face, along with Caleb's, was a perfect mask of utter despair. The first time I met Leo, I was helping Miles haul a keg up to his frat house for a party. Leo, mistaking me for Miles from behind, came up and slapped my ass, hard. He'd commented on how my squats were clearly paying off. When Miles called his name from the porch, Leo froze. He turned around, his eyes traveling up from my worn-out sneakers to my face, and the blush that bloomed across his features was legendary. He pursued me for 2 years after that. He showed up at the campus coffee shop where I worked, sat in the front row of a lecture he wasn't even enrolled in just to walk me to my next class, and flooded my DMs with terrible memes. He was relentless, charming, and utterly devoted. He was the one who wore me down, who made me believe in this. Now, looking at the blank, polite curiosity in his eyes, it was like staring at an empty slate where our entire history had been meticulously erased. Later, after I had walked a still giddy Miles downstairs, I returned to find Leo lying in his hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. He was telling Caleb, in a voice thick with misery, how unbelievably tragic it was to meet the man of his dreams only to find out he belonged to his best friend. Caleb, ever the pragmatist, just patted his shoulder and asked him what the plan was. Leo lamented that he couldn't just steal his friend's boyfriend. Caleb's response was immediate and deadpan. He told Leo that if he was going to do it, he should just do it, and that he'd even help. Leo shot up in bed, his eyes wide with righteous indignation, demanding to know what was wrong with Caleb. How could he even suggest something so vile, so treacherous? Stealing a friend's partner was unthinkable. The hypocrisy was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. After Leo was discharged, the four of us fell into a strange, awkward orbit. He would text Miles constantly, asking him to hang out, always with the casual addendum to bring me along. And wherever I was, Caleb would inevitably appear. It was a four-person vortex of unspoken tensions. Miles's demanding summer internship eventually put an end to the group hangouts, but Leo, resourceful as ever, somehow got my number from a group chat. The first message was a shy puppy emoji. He claimed he was bored and lonely now that Caleb was on a business trip. His texts were a calculated blend of pathetic and alluring, filled with sad-eyed selfies and complaints about his headaches. I knew it was an act. This was the same man who once tried to initiate sex while running a 102-degree fever. After a series of increasingly dramatic texts about his dizziness, I caved. I told him I had a free lunch hour and could stop by his apartment. His reply, a single okay, was typed with the speed and enthusiasm of a man who had just won the lottery. I showed up with a box of the spiciest buffalo wings from his favorite dive bar and a slice of decadent chocolate lava cake. The moment I walked in, he was a portrait of frail suffering, draped dramatically on his sofa with a blanket pulled up to his chin. He complained his head was spinning. I knew he was faking, but I played along, placing a hand on his forehead. The temperature was perfectly normal. He seized the opportunity, grabbing my hand and launching into a monologue about his profound loneliness. After 10 minutes, he finally got to the point, asking if I could visit more, or at least text him more often. I agreed with a placid smile, then moved to his kitchen island and opened the box of wings. The spicy, vinegary aroma filled the apartment. Leo's head snapped up, his nose twitching. He asked what smelled so good. I explained it was lunch, which I had intended to share, but since he was so unwell, it was probably best if he didn't have any. The look of pure, unadulterated regret on his face was a masterpiece. I was clearing the containers when his doorbell rang. The woman standing there was Sophie, his childhood neighbor, and the other person in the photograph that had started all of this. It turned out the picture was a setup. Her stepmother, desperate to engineer a marriage to secure a business alliance with Leo's family, had orchestrated the whole thing. Sophie explained that Leo had called her the night of the accident, confused and upset after I had shown him the picture. The fight that followed replayed in my mind. The weeks of missed calls and late-night texts, the exhaustion from my new job that had built a wall between us. His frustration and my suspicion had collided, creating a perfect storm of anger and misunderstanding that ended with him storming out and getting into that cab. With the truth revealed, a chasm of guilt opened up inside me. I avoided Leo, unsure how to face him. Caleb called, telling me Leo wasn't doing well, that he was anxious and kept asking for me. I sent Miles to check on him, who reported back that Leo was perfectly fine, eating like a horse and working on his abs. Miles complained that Leo stared at him the entire time with an unnerving intensity. Caleb, at his wit's end, arranged a trip. A weekend at a cabin on Lake Crescent, a place Leo and I had gone on our first anniversary. He said the doctor suggested familiar places might jog his memory. I hesitated, and in that moment of hesitation, Caleb decided for me. That Friday, he and Miles showed up at my apartment with a bottle of very expensive, very strong whiskey. The next thing I knew, I was waking up with a splitting headache in the passenger seat of Caleb's SUV, the towering pines of the Olympic National Park flashing by. Leo was waiting for us when we pulled up. He looked thinner, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. He handed me a thermos. He told me he'd made a hangover cure he'd gotten from the lodge's cook. I took a sip, It was sweet and tangy, with hawthorn and honey. The first time he'd ever made it for me, it was bitter and nearly undrinkable. He'd spent weeks perfecting the recipe just for me. The fact that his body remembered what his mind had forgotten sent a painful jolt through me. He watched me, his expression anxious. When I told him it was good, he broke into a radiant smile. As I was about to finally tell him everything, he grabbed my arm, his face a mask of grim determination. He needed to report a grave injustice. He had caught Caleb and Miles kissing in the woods. He told me, his voice full of outrage, that my boyfriend was cheating on me. I tried to explain that it was fine, that they were probably together, but that only made him more agitated. How could it be fine? If they were together, why was Miles with me? The logic was tangled, and my head was pounding. Just then, Miles called my name. Leo's face fell. He told me to go, but his hand tightened on my sleeve. He promised he would wait for me right there. My conversation with Miles was a whispered, frantic negotiation. His fight with Caleb was real, and he begged me to keep up the charade just a little longer. Defeated, I agreed. The boomerang of my own lie came flying back to hit me in the face. When I returned to Leo, he immediately asked what Miles had wanted. I mumbled something about them just having a moment of true feelings. True feelings? Leo repeated, his brow furrowed. So they're the real love story? Before I could process it, he squared his shoulders. Fine, he declared. If they can have a messy love story, then so can we. I'll be your side piece. I choked on my hangover cure, spraying a fine mist of it onto the pine needles at my feet. He wanted to be my what? He argued his case with the passion of a trial lawyer, listing his physical attributes and promising he could outshine both Miles and Caleb. The conviction in his voice was so absurd, so completely at odds with the guy who, just weeks ago, swore off gay men entirely, that all I could do was stare. That night, the rooming situation was a disaster. There was one suite with a king bed and 2 small rooms with single beds. Miles, still in character, declared that he and I, as the couple, would take the suite. Later that night, long after the lights were out, our door creaked open. The bed dipped. I dreamt I was trapped in a warm, narrow cave. When I woke up, my face was pressed against a wall of solid muscle. I mumbled, half asleep, congratulating Miles on his new workout routine. A voice from the far side of the bed groggily asked what I was talking about. I slowly lifted my head and found myself staring directly into Leo's sleeping face. He was wedged between me and a still unconscious Miles, who was being prevented from rolling off the bed only by Caleb's arms slung protectively over him. The next night, to prevent a repeat performance, Miles and I insisted on separate rooms, leaving the king's suite to Leo and Caleb. After dinner, I went for a walk by the lake and found Leo there, swatting at mosquitoes. It was all very casual, but I knew he'd been waiting for me. He fanned me with a small portable fan and sprayed me with bug spray, his gesture small and tender. It felt exactly like when we were first dating, when he was all sweet, gentlemanly gestures, before he revealed the charming wolf beneath the sheep's clothing. He walked me back to my room. A few minutes later, there was a knock. It was Leo, claiming Caleb had fallen asleep and he was locked out. He asked if he could stay with me, adding with a blush that he was clean and had brought protection. The offer was so blunt, so 18-year-old in a 26-year-old's body. I couldn't resist teasing him. I asked what the return policy was if his skills weren't up to par. He stammered that returns weren't supported, but upgrades were. I laughed and pulled him inside. Later, tangled in the sheets, with my consciousness fading, he whispered a question in my ear. He wanted to know who was better, him or Miles. The question jolted me awake. The implication was clear. I told him through a yawn that it wasn't a fair comparison. Being a top and being a bottom were two completely different skill sets. He went rigid. Then he buried his face in my neck, his shoulders shaking with soft sobs. He whispered that I loved him, I really truly loved him, that I would do that for him. The dumbass was heroically misinterpreting everything. Before I could correct him, he was ready for another round, his eyes shining with a renewed, earnest passion. The next morning, my back was aching. Leo was nowhere to be found. I hobbled out of my room and ran into Miles, who was being pulled back into his own room by Caleb for what looked like a heated kiss. At breakfast, Leo finally appeared, carrying a pharmacy bag. He strutted past Miles with a triumphant smirk. In our room, he insisted on applying ointment for me. He'd read online that being too rough the first time could cause issues. To get out of it, and without thinking, I blurted out that it was fine, I wasn't even sore. In fact, I'd barely felt a thing. The air went still. Leo stared at me, his face a glitching computer screen. His mouth hung open. So, he whispered all that stuff about apples and oranges was just a nice way of saying he was terrible? Before I could explain, his eyes filled with tears. He turned and fled, just as Miles threw open the door to ask me something. The sound of their heads colliding was a sickening thud. The good news was he was fine. The bad news was his memory was back. Caleb took a fuming Miles away, leaving me to face the music. I walked into the hospital room to find Leo sitting up in bed, arms crossed, with the iciest expression I had ever seen on his face. He looked me up and down, then sniffed disdainfully. He commented on how surprising it was that a big-shot lawyer like me could find the time to visit. He was trying so hard to be a cold, intimidating CEO, but the way his lower lip was pushed out in a pout gave him away. He wasn't truly angry. He just wanted me to grovel. I sat down and started peeling an apple, not saying a word. After a minute of silence, he couldn't stand it anymore. He accused me of already missing Miles. I pointed out that the breakup had been his idea. I even had the texts to prove it. He froze, the apple falling from his hand. He looked at me, a flicker of his old panic in his eyes, and immediately started backpedaling. That wasn't him, he insisted, that was 18-year-old Leo. Why should he be held accountable for that guy's actions? He had done all the work of chasing me for 2 years, and amnesiac Leo just threw it all away. It wasn't fair. He grabbed my arm, his voice cracking as he wailed that I couldn't do this to him. I let him cry for a while before I gently took his hand. I told him I wasn't going anywhere. The past was the past and we could just start over. A month later, after a long week at work, I came home to find my apartment filled with the smell of roasted garlic and candles everywhere. Leo had cooked an elaborate dinner. After we ate, I collapsed into bed, exhausted. He slid in next to me, his body warm against mine. He whispered in my ear, his voice a low rumble. He said he remembered my review of his last performance, and he'd been doing his homework. Tonight, he said, we were going to see if he'd improved. Then his lips were on mine. He murmured against my mouth, "Let's see you say you felt nothing this time."